Welcome, everyone. It's April 13th, 2019. We're back in 1968, folks. And those were the years. Those were the beginnings. 2019. And about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I gave a presentation on sexual energy and the rainbow body. And I got some feedback later that some people would love to have heard more about my personal story about this, because as far as I know, I've developed what at least I'm calling a rainbow body, and I was a little bit embarrassed to even say something like that at the last seminar and or webinar, and so anyway, I sort of came to terms with that. Because see, the rainbow body in some ways is sort of like an ultimate spiritual development. At least that's how a lot of people think of it, and it is something that is incredibly awesome, and I'm concerned as it would sound pretentious to say that, but that's my understanding. But I've been on a path of energy for many years now, and that is a way to develop the rainbow body. So I'm going to go into some of the things that I've been done to help me get to the place where I began and continue to develop what I call the rainbow body. First of all, give a little bit of context. I use pendulum dowsing to go from what my being perceives to language. And I've been studying the pendulum dowsing for about 30 years now. And 14 of those years, I was about 1 to 2 hours every week. I was with a dowsing mentor. So you get, double checking my answers and see if we can remember this, seeing that. So the methodology, I would not call myself a psychic, but the methodology of the conceptual framework that I'm presenting to you comes via that. So that's just, and dowsing of any kind and muscle testing, which is basically the same thing, is prone to error. And it's really easy to get BS answers. So I check my answers over time to see if I keep getting the same answer. If there's a continuity, I feel a little more confident in the potentiality of its accuracy. But everything that I present in these conceptualizations is a hypothesis, open to revision. And if you look at some of my earlier videos on my Vimeo channel, which is entitled, that channel is Shamanic Transformation, one word, Shamanic Transformation. Videos go back 5, 6 years or so, and my language changes, my perspectives change. So there's no ultimate truth here. There's a steps toward that. So I use dowsing. Now I want to double check. Just one more second here. I am going to do something so that theoretically my video is the predominant video. And one other thing, can you still see my face, me talking? I shifted over to my notes in another program. Someone turn on your audio briefly and say if you do see me. I already double checked that earlier, but I want to.
Yes.
I can see you.
Good. Okay. So So let me a little bit try to give you a quick conceptualization of what I'm referring to as the rainbow body. And it does not necessarily coincide with some of the ideas you would see on the internet. I don't try to do what it's sort of like the whole evolutionary conceptual framework that I sometimes sum up as the energy paradigm. It comes up from within, and there's a logic within itself. And so if some concept from some other tradition, teacher, comes up and is relevant, I might use it. If it doesn't, I don't pay attention to it. It's just it's the consistency within my own framework. And so you're hearing my perspective on this. So first of all, the nature of existence. What is the nature of existence? As best as I understand, conceptually, that existence is made up of frequencies vibrating. And I am referring to something, well, the atom, I'm not even talking about physicality. It's something more intrinsic than even what we would think of as the atom and the molecule. I don't know if it coincides with any ideas in quantum physics or not. I don't have a background to say on that either way. But we have frequencies that are vibrating, and they vibrate from lower amplitude to higher amplitude. And the higher the amplitude, the higher the intensity. And when these different frequencies are combined together, the result is what I call form. They can either be a being or what I call an elements form. A lake, a rock, is an elements form. Spirit guides, you and me, giraffes are beings. Some beings embody with a physical organism, as we do as a human being, and some beings do not embody. And I'm not referring to a ghost-like situation. Ghosts are a part of this, but I'm talking about other types of beings entirely. The most commonly referred to one would be a spirit guide, spirit companion, and which I call a amplifying being. Excuse me, a knowing being, a knowing being. Okay, so as a form made up of vibrating frequencies combined together, as a human being, we're born with certain patterns available to us, but we have to develop them. Most people develop them to a very, 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 very limited extent. The way I see it is we are a being made of 20 energetic structures, which are not physical matter, that is embodied with a physical organism, what most people would call a body. And this being is where the consciousness comes from. And in a sense brings life force to the organism so that it does what it does, and then the organism and the being work together. While the being is incarnated, we can do certain things. While that being, when our being is not incarnated, it cannot do the same things. If we want to grow and develop, we need to incarnate. And so when we are born, we come in as a human being with potentiality of 20 energetic structures. That's inherent in our nature. It's just there. The potential is there. The patterns are potentially there to be developed. Once we develop them rather extensively, it's possible to develop in effect, a 21st structure energetic structure that I call the rainbow body. When I first started hearing about the rainbow body just a couple of years ago, they were talking about Tibetan Buddhist lamas who had died, their body shrinks, and you have rainbows in the sky. I do not have an experience of that, but I started looking at the energetic patterns. I've somehow developed some abilities to what I call read energetic patterns, at least seem to have. And so that's where this information comes through. And I begin to look at particularly Tibetan lamas, Tibetan Rinpoches, such as the Dalai Lama, videos on the 16th Karmapa, videos on one of the two 17th Karmapas. I think that those are the right numbers. The 17th Karmapa, that is T-H-A-Y-E. The two Karmapas have very similar names. One was approved by the Chinese and one is in the West. It's the one in the West that I really think is the reincarnation of the Karmapa, which is head of one of the main lineages within Buddhism. And I had the good fortune of being in ceremony with the 16th Karmapa before he died, about 40 years ago. And so I've been in his energy field, I mean, within inches. It's called the Black Cat Ceremony, about 2,000 people. And we all go up to the front of where he is and he blesses us. So I don't know if I was touched or just I was within a few inches of him. So I have a sense of his energetic field. And one of the people that is called the Karmapa, I think the 17th Karmapa, I think is the same energetic pattern as the one that I was with. And that's the Karmapa with the name T-H-A-Y-E, Thai. In the middle, that's how I remember the distinction between the two. Kalu Rinpoche, previous incarnation, not the current incarnation, but the previous incarnation. So looking at another person which is alive, which I've had a chance to be in the auditorium with, listening to his presentation, is Mingyur, M-I-N-G-Y-U-R, I think it is, M-I-N-G-Y-U-R, Rinpoche, a young guy, very brilliant, very brilliant. These people have developed patterns that are very similar to each other and that I've come to call the rainbow body. There's certain patterns. Now the chakras and the kundalini, those are other patterns. Everybody has those as a human being or we wouldn't be alive. But the rainbow body is something else that we sort of have to learn and develop. So I am going to share with you some of the major events and situations and people that have, as far as I can tell, using the dowsing, that have been factors in my developing the rainbow body. Now, I meditate or do something I can call meditation, like 2 to 4 hours a day. Being quadriplegics, I don't go out and I don't go to the mountaintop. I have to have a mountaintop come to me, so to speak. And so I just do a lot of, you could call it meditation. It's much more complex than just observing my mind, much more. You can call it shamanic meditation, shamanic ceremony, but it's all within energetically. And the situations that I was in to help develop this 21st, I had to learn about it, so to speak, come to have a knowingness. So the two primary ones, one is an experience I had with the Dalai Lama. He was coming to Tucson, and I thought he was coming in a month or two. Turned out I bought tickets for a year in advance. That's how far ahead. Tucson is a community of almost 1 million people. You take the huge area around here, and but there are a lot of Buddhists, It's a very, I mean, a lot of American Buddhists, as well as Thai Buddhists, and so it's big enough to bring the Dalai Lama to this relatively small community compared to a lot of the places that he goes. And so I went ahead and paid the extra money to be able to sit in a closer position to where he was. I figured this is the only time I'm ever going to get to see the Dalai Lama, because I don't travel easily. And I ended up getting a front row seat over in the corner of an aisle, which was only maybe about 15 yards from where the Dalai Lama sat. And he would come in from a doorway from this is 5-day program, his teachings on something. He would come in from the doorway to my left and walk down this little, between these, and this aisle to go where he was giving his teachings. And he would stop and talk to people, touch people in his joyous way. And there I was, you had 2,000 people standing up in total silence doing the position. And I was sitting there doing the same thing as best I could. And a number of times he would stop and touch my hands and smile and go on to another person and eventually give his lecture for the morning or the afternoon of these 5 days. One of those times, he touched my hands and he zapped me. It's like I could feel all this energy coming from his third eye area. I call it zapping, for lack of a better term. And and I usually focus on connecting with other people, other beings, via my navel area, what I call the source point. His was the third eye, so I quickly shifted to match what I was experiencing, to focus on being energy with him, to be one with him, as I would call it, oneness. And I think it lasted 1 to 2 seconds, I don't know. But it was very obvious, very clear feeling. And then he kept on going. What I understand now is the things that we were made up of, but other things that we understand, I call it vibratory knowingness. It's not conceptual knowingness; it's vibratory knowingness. And what that is combinations of sets of frequencies combined together. The concept of a giraffe, the concept of abundance, those concepts are all vibratory patterns. And it's sort of like he opened up his library and said, here it is. And if we're developed enough energetically to receive a download, we can receive the download of that, in a sense, a library of knowingness. And this is energetic patterns about everything that he knows, that he's had experience in. And there it was. And I don't know what, at the time I just felt energy, so I said, oh, I'm going to match his energy. Because it was yummy. It was yummy, and it was very distinct. It wasn't just a smiling face. No. This cat was zapping me. And he didn't say anything. He never explained anything to me. Because I was just one of 2,000 people in this auditorium. So now as I look back and say, with my dowsing, what was going on? He basically just opened it up and said, here it is. And I tried to be receptive. The Dalai Lama has a rainbow body. My understanding is that's when I first really had vibratorily knowing, not conceptually, but vibratorily knowing about this energetic structure of the rainbow body. All that information was there. You know, the game plan, well, not the game plan, but the blueprint of what it is, the nature of it, and how it's structured. This is how I understand. So it was in that 2 seconds that I got the blueprint of what I call the rainbow body. A second most important factor in the development of a rainbow body is another Tibetan Lama, Zachoje Rinpoche, Zachoeje, Zachoje. His website is Emaho, EMAHO, I think it is, maybe it's org. Anyway, he's a Tibetan Lama. And when I started to do the documentary that I called The Sacred Prostitute, I really wanted to have a Tibetan Lama present in it to talk about sexuality and Tantra from a Tibetan Buddhist point of view, because Tantric Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism is also known as Vajrayana Buddhism, as well as Tantric Buddhism. And so I wanted to get a Tantric Buddhism point of view in that documentary called The Sacred Prostitute. Well, it's not very easy to find a Tibetan Lama who's willing to go public talking about sexuality. Because at least the Dalai Lama's sect, Gelugpa, his lineage is theoretically celibate. Not all Tibetan Buddhist lineages are celibate, some marry. Anyway, Zachoje Rinpoche, I happened to meet him in an event here in Tucson, although he's based in Phoenix. And I asked him, would you be willing to, or interested in, open to talking about sexuality in a documentary named The Sacred Prostitute? And he said, yes. My jaw inside just, really? You willing to do that? I didn't think it was going to be possible, but I looked, I think he was the third or fourth Tibetan Lama that I approached to do that. And so I got to know him over time. And he is beautiful. He is such a beautiful spirit. Whenever I'm around him, I am in love. Not in an erotic sense, but just sort of like, I feel love. And it seemed like he may have been a teacher in some of my previous incarnations. Anyway, I somehow after that documentary, I felt inclined to go up to his empowerments or even some weekend retreats in this authentic Tibetan tent up in Arizona, northern Arizona. And so I went to see him, but every 3 months, I'd feel like, oh, maybe it's time to go back to see Rinpoche. And for maybe around 3 years or so, I did that. And then I became to realize that I had developed to function energetically in certain ways. And he was my model. He was my prototype. I would go to his empowerments, his lectures, his presentations, and focus via my source point, as I call it, to be one with him energetically. So tune into him energetically. And what he said was important, but what was more important is energetically how he is functioning. And apparently because of that, particularly because of that, I was able to develop myself in certain energetic structures and energetic patterns of greater and greater and greater intensity. He's a close student to the Dalai Lama as well. So anyway, I had someone live, highly energetically developed, that I was going to see over a period of time. And apparently what I was doing was being there in the meditations with him, was I was gradually learning, coming to know and develop certain energetic patterns, which are very, very important if you want to develop as a shaman or as a Tibetan Rinpoche. At least that's where they end up with these highly developed patterns. And so that was about 3 years, though, of about every 3 months going back, okay, take a little bit more in, okay, take a little bit more in, and come back and do my meditations and everything, and which were not the Tibetan Buddhist meditations. I was doing other types of meditations seemed much more relevant to me, such as tuning in to go out every night and tune into the desert sky and find a star and focus via my source point to be one with whatever life forms were on the planets around that star, perhaps. So we're talking about millions of light years away. I don't know if anything really happened, but I did that for about 9 months. Practiced on connecting with life forms light years away. And that was one of the practices I used, which I've never heard anyone else doing that, but that's what was coming up via my dowsing. That would be a good practice. So the two primary factors in my developing light body was, one, that Dalai Lama transmission expression, and two, these series of meditations with and the development came from that with this Tibetan Lama, Zhangzhou Rinpoche. A sort of second tier of things that I did that helped me to develop the rainbow body is I came home one night and I got a phone call from another person who was studying this apprentice in the same shamanic tradition that I was in. And she said she'd gotten this guidance from her spirit guides for us to do a set of cards. She would do the art and I would design the cards. And I said, oh, I thought about it, what the heck, give it a try. If anything comes of it, nothing comes of it. It'd be a fun project. So I developed what I call the shaman cards. And it has a representation of a plant, an animal, crystal, and a human being in a certain condition, and then a concept in the center. And the idea was to focus on these types of beings or types of things to vibrate like them, such as a whale. Well, it was like to be one with a whale, to merge with a whale, but to, in a sense, no particular whale, but to whaleness, to be the whaleness. So tuning into whaleness to come to have a vibratory knowingness of those patterns, those combinations of vibratory frequencies that would form a pattern unique to whaleness, which is different than giraffeness. And so you do that, and then in the concept in the center, an abstract concept, that also is made up of frequency patterns. And then you drop all the association with where you got them, it was the whale or this concept, and you combine, this is the meditation or the energetic ceremony, all these different frequency patterns together in a new way. You just combine them, that's sort of the intent, to combine them all. And that process was a way to, when you're functioning with what I call the being, the way you do stuff is by what I call intentionality. We don't have physical muscles, we have energetic muscles. And by focusing certain ways, which is just not thinking, although we might use thoughts to be involved in it, it's like to get myself to vibrate in certain patterns, the practice of a new pattern, a new pattern, a new pattern. And that's what the shaman cards were doing. I created them, but also I was practicing them or doing the meditations fairly frequently. And so that was doing that type of a practice, meditative practice, was a major factor in developing the rainbow body. But also, and this is like the fourth one, teaching all the trainings and doing all the individual sessions with people. The whole process of interacting energetically. There's no physical interaction. I mean, there's no, like I used to do massage professionally, but I can't do that now. And like over the internet is how I teach. And so I have to, in a sense, become one with the person at a distance, vibrate like them, and that makes certain energetic patterns available to that person that I have, and whatever they have, I can come to have a knowingness as well. So the process of doing this, at that time, it'd been about 8-9 years of doing this, and the individual sessions, it got to dance and know a lot of different variations on the theme of how people function. So that's sort of like a second tier of importance about developing the rainbow body within me. Those are things I was involved in. Like the third tier, something called ring cells, RINGSELS, if I remember correctly. When highly developed Tibetan Buddhists die and they are can't think of the word, but when they're put to the fire, they go through the remains afterwards, and if a person is highly developed, often there are little pearl-like objects that they find in the ashes, and they're called ring cells. And they're collected because, let me tell you, they got energy. Anyway, for several years, there was a project, I think it's called the Mataya Project. Mataya. Anyway, the Tibetan Tibetan Buddhist Relic Tour. And he came to Tucson a number of times because this is such a Buddhist community. I went to see that show, that place about 6 different times, and I would tune into these ring cells. Those ring cells, not only did they have energy, but they had vibratory knowingness about the nature of the being that had grown them, so to speak, developed them in that particular incarnation. And they do have ones from the Buddha, Sakyamuni Buddha, 2,500 years ago. And at least as far as they say that's what it is, and I suspect so, because whatever it is, it is real powerful. I mean, it's really powerful. And by tuning into it the way I tune into it, what I call the source point, I could really feel the energy. Again, like I said, I'm not psychic. I don't see auras. I never saw anything, but I could feel is the best language I can use. So seeing those are these highly, highly developed people, now in deceased form, from a number of different centuries, and going around seeing it different times, I really got to have a lot of knowingness, but also a lot of energy from that. And that tour is no longer available, apparently. They were having a tour before they developed some building in, I think, India, where they all are housed. I haven't heard anything about it, but I don't go to India. So, but if you ever get a chance to go to see ring cells, go. It's one of the most powerful spiritual teachings, I think, available to us. You just tune into it and meditate with each one. The Buddhist relic tour, not all the relics are like that, but something called the ring cell, these little pearl, tiny pearls, smaller than BBs, big as or smaller than BBs usually. Also, this third tier, going to power spots and meditating. This is the earth being, which is a being embodied with this physical planet. That's how my languaging. There are certain places where its intensity is higher than other places. And they're referred to as power spots. And some are particularly powerful. I'm going to get some water here. I have it right next to me this time. My first, and some of them are more powerful than others. People go to Sedona, definitely power spots there. They call them vortexes. Well, they're vortexes, yes. But there's so many there, and there's so much that it's very, very, very obvious in many ways. But I found something that was much more meaningful for me to the about 2 hours, 3 hours northeast of that Sedona here in Arizona, is a place called Canyon de Chelly, C-E-L-L-Y. Chelly is spelled C-E-L-L-Y, if I remember correctly. And I was just being a tourist, taking the tour across the drive on the ridge above the valley, above the canyon. And the very last one I got to was called Spider Rock. I was in my wheelchair, of course. And as I started down the concrete pathway on the edge of this plateau, I finally got to the place where I could see the top of Spider Rock, which is a two-spire spire. It's one sort of big spire, but it splits midway up, so into two different points, two different sections. And the way I talk about it now is, if I had been walking with my legs, it's like I would have gone down to my knees because I suddenly realized I am in sacred ground. The energy was so fucking awesome. So awesome. And I went back there for about 13 years, once a year, to do my meditation, do my ceremony. And there are other power spots, but those are the ones there are a number of power spots around the world, but I can't travel in this condition easily. And so I won't be going to Mount Fuji or to the one down in Mexico. Anyway, there's a number of them around the world. Often they're mountains, but not only. mountains, and tuning into that. And other people, then I began to realize that shamans and the people have been coming to these places doing ceremony. So all this, in a sense, knowingness is so available there, plus the intensity of the energy of what I call the earth being. It's focused there at these power. What reason people feel it is because it's a focus of the energetic intensity there. So going to power spots, I highly recommend if you can go to one, meditate to be one with it. Although I will say the people that do take my classes and develop the source point, I say 30 minutes max and only one day. 30 minutes max. You sit there and do other ceremony and focus elsewhere and do other things, but do not focus on being one with that power spot more than 30 minutes. It may be too intense, and when you have too much intensity, you have to sort of have you pay your price, pay your dues later. So, ring cells and power spots, and then the fourth tier, I started developing working with crystals, dancing with crystals energetically, and do something called whispering with crystals and spaces. And somehow, I don't know how this came about, it just kept developing. Theoretically, I have the ability to facilitate the development of what I call a whirling vortex sphere, which what that does is it enables the beings in that space, or if you're meditating with a crystal like that, to access what I call undifferentiated primordial essence of existence. Undifferentiated primordial essence of existence. The shorter name for that would be, I use pure energy. I have used the word light before, and also in that webinar I gave a few weeks ago, sexual energy. It's not about, it's beyond orgasm, the way I'm referring to the idea of sexual energy. But the developing myself to do that, what I call whispering is a poetic name, really gave me a great deal of practice with dancing with energy, just like the shaman cards. And then the fourth level, I'm still in this fourth level, a fourth tier. What came up was the factors in my developing my rainbow body was when I started doing muscle testing 30 years ago, which was pressing on muscles. After my neck injury, I had to shift to what I call pendulum dowsing. And I started using pendulum dowsing to ascertain what's the best thing for me to do, to use right now, to meditate, to practice. And one of the things that came up was go outside at night and for an hour, look up into the sky, find a star, and then with your source point, intend to be one with whatever life forms were there. I didn't have to look at it. Once I located the star, I'd go back inside. Okay, and I just kept playing with that. And so an hour every night, I'd go outside and sit in the desert, visited by rattlesnakes, skunks. I even saw a fox once, and visited by a skunk who did not spray me. I thought it was a pussycat when I opened my eyes. So anyway, I had some wonderful experience with the animal world. And, but the point is I was using my dowsing to figure out what was the best meditation for me to use, given the situation, given my condition. And it was over the years, different things. So what I did was I set up as whatever comes up is what I'll try that. I'll try that, rather than some other meditative practice that I'd gotten from other teachers. I said, just okay, whatever comes up in this process. So that's one of the major things, was to go wherever it went rather than wherever that particular tradition was trying to support people in going direction. So those are the things. The Dalai Lama is going to see Joshu Rinpoche, meditating with the shaman cards, teaching my trainings and giving individual sessions, the ring cells, power spots, developing and doing vulnerability and doing what I call whispering crystals and spaces, and following whatever the Dowsing, just simply let that be my guide for this lifetime, at least for this, see what came up. Those would seem to be the major things that facilitated that happening for me. Now, there's also been lots of other important experiences. When I was in San Francisco for 22 years, I attended consciousness seminars, EST, Actualizations, LifeSpring, which you may or may not have ever heard of. They were very useful. They were limited in certain ways, but very useful. And also, I was teaching erotic massage and studying in the field of sexuality, teaching erotic massage, taking seminars and courses and trainings in that field. Sexuality will teach you about energy, the doingness of sexuality. If you pay attention to it that way, that there's a lot to do with energy. Now, I want to give you, you might say, whatever, I don't know your path. And I can't tell you what to do in terms of what would be the best thing for you. What I asked my dad, what could I suggest? And it was talking, what came up was to meditate with a whispered crystal. And we're with whispered crystal. Only the place I know is here, but I'm not trying to sell them to you. I just don't know where else, if anyone else can do that. And it's not just any crystal, even though they're powerful crystals. It's that whirling vortex sphere that becomes a part of that being embodied with that crystalline structure. You need 5 to 10 minutes minimum for 5 to 7 days a week. That is an available, potentially available activity that you might do. The other, of course, is take my 20-level training, but this is not about selling you the 20-level training, but people, some of which are here today, or one of which is here today, is they developed what I call a rainbow pattern. I look at those patterns, but it's a 1 to 2 year process. And going through changes, that's for sure. Going through changes. And I told you what I've done. Could you repeat that? No, it's not about doing what I've done. It's doing what speaks to you. And I guess I ought to say, I didn't say at the beginning, but why even develop a rainbow body? As a being, we come in and we have energetic structures, but the energetic intensity, or what people think of as energy, and consciousness come from somewhere else. We have it, but its essence is somewhere else. And that's what I call the undifferentiated primordial essence of existence, or pure energy, or light, or sexual energy. But I like to use the word pure energy. We cannot, the best way for the average person to get more energy is with orgasm. And my perspective, there are 4 different types of orgasms. Sexual orgasm is one of them. Some of the others look more like mystical experiences. And when we do that, we generate more or a certain type of energy. But we can only go so far with that unless we develop the rainbow body. And the rainbow body gives us access to this essence of existence. It's undifferentiated. It's primordial. It's the basis of everything. There are no vibratory patterns there. I don't know what it is other than essence of existence. And try to give a little analogy. See, we have a yellow submarine and we're into the water, but we've not yet developed a periscope. And we're just going around, we look out there and see life forms and go where we want to go in a yellow submarine. But then one day we get the idea, why don't I try to see what's above this water? So you develop a periscope. And when the periscope goes up, you access the light, the air, where there is light in a different way than under the water. And what the basic elemental structure, energetic structure of the rainbow body is this current of energy about 2 inches in diameter, going from the bottom of our energy field, which is about arm's length beneath the bottom of our feet, right up to the core, right through our organism and through the focal points of the chakras, right through the centers of everything, and to arm's length above the top of our head to the other end of our energy field. And that's a perspective of what our energy field is, and it's just a perspective which you can consider, but don't have to believe. It's not a question of believing it. And when we develop that energetic structure, which is what I learned in a sense from the Dalai Lama, and other places too after later on, but particularly the Dalai Lama, because it was live and it was zapped and it was awesome experience. It was a very awesome experience. And I was very clear. I didn't go into any altered state. I mean, I didn't zonk out or anything. I didn't get happy, as some traditions call it. When we develop, I forgot the point I was getting to, when we develop that, it's like a periscope that accesses this pure energy from which we get consciousness is a differentiation, and energetic intensity is a second differentiation. Pure energy differentiates into consciousness and pure intensity. That's what I meant to say a moment ago. I didn't say it. Pure intensity, excuse me, energetic intensity and consciousness. That's what pure energy differentiates into. Then with the consciousness and the energetic intensity, different structures and patterns can be developed to, it's the basis of our form, of our being, of our physical body. And when we're able to access that pure energy, because we've developed the periscope, the rainbow body, we're able to have this available to us for our transformation, for our energetic development. It is lots of energy, lots of intensity, and lots of consciousness available to us. So that's the main reason to develop a rainbow body, so that it makes us be all that we can be and more. And there are very, very few people There are very few shamans to begin with on the planet, from my point of view, although I'm sure hundreds, if not thousands. But rainbow bodies, I've seen them only with Tibetan Buddhist Rinpoches and a few shamans, some in the Kiro, Q'-E-R-O, I think it's spelled. That's not quite right. But in the Andes and the Koji, K-O-J-I, G-I, I think it's G-I, in Colombia. And you can find them on the internet once in a while, but which ones have developed the rainbow body, I can't tell you because I don't know their names, and they're not as available to us with information the way that the Tibetan Rinpoches are. So, a little more water here, just 1 second. So, anyone have any questions, thoughts, reflections? This would be a time I want to spend a few minutes doing that. And then if you want to hang in a little bit longer, we're going to do a 10-minute meditation. Which is...
Yeah, I had a question on ring cells. How did you spell that?
I remember it spelled as R-I-N-G-S-E-L-S. And as far as I know, that is the Tibetan term.
Thank you.
I don't know what there used to be a beautiful site called, well, where you could go see all of these, but that's been shut down. I don't hear much about it. Buddhist, maybe look at Tibetan Buddhist artifacts on the internet. Because the energy's there even in the photographs, at least for me, but especially that live with them, of course. R-I-N-G-S-E-L-S, I believe. Yes.
Okay. Right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
When did you know that you could energetically help other people develop their energy bodies or their structure?
Well, you know, I'm sort of like a born teacher. I love to teach. And I was doing all these meditations that I told you about after I had my neck injury. Well, before, but particularly after the neck injury. And using my dowsings and what to do. And I thought, it'd be nice to share this with people. So I started dowsing as to what to teach the people. And that was the beginning of Path of the Sexual Shaman seminar. And I gave a few presentations on merging, the way I call it, which is beginnings of the idea of oneness. And so that would have been somewhere around 15, 18 years ago that I started teaching. I would give a little 2-hour seminar at a conference or something like that. So that's when it started. And then he's kept developing and eventually into a course called Path of the Sexual Shaman, which is now level 1, and then under the 20th level, I now called the Rainbow Body. So I don't know. I did massage after I went to massage in 1973 after doing my hippie trip after being in academia, and I know that helped people, but it was not. It was more physical, just to relax, feel good, to appreciate how wonderful the body can feel. Does that answer your question, Charmaine?
Yes, it does. I know you teach massage, and I found you through reading your books and finding The Sacred Prostitute, and then when I knew when you started the Path of the Sexual Shaman. I mean, I even had the shaman cards when you created them, and I did all that practices. I have the first, like you sent me a set, I think like the laminated ones that were really.
Yeah.
I still have them.
Yeah, you were the guinea pigs with the shaman cards. Do you feel anything with this, or is it just my imagination?
Yeah, right. I remember. Yeah, they're powerful. I was just wondering when you got to this Path of the Sexual Shaman, and then the levels were created, how you knew you could assist others and teach others, and what that felt like, and then you trusted that process through your dowsing as well, right?
Yeah, it was through the dowsing. I said, anything else to teach? Anything else to teach?
Right.
And sometimes after a year or two, yep, time for another course. Oh, okay. I had to wait till it was ready. It was ready. I couldn't just go make it up.
I know. I remember
I had to
waiting.
be. I had to be ready. I had to be
Right.
ready to develop it myself before I could teach it.
Yes, of course. Okay, yeah, I got it. Thank you, Ray.
All right. Anyone else? Any questions? Cool. Thank you so much for joining. What I'd like to do now is do a meditation together. I call it to be one energetically with each other. However you want to do that, you focus. For those who've been to my courses, you know about the source point, but don't worry about it if you've never been, don't know what I'm referring to. You just sort of have some sort of with your mind, some sort of concept of, oh, I want to vibrate like the other people in this call. And you have several people who are quite energetically developed who are attending in this session. And for about 10 minutes, we just simply focus like that. And you feel whatever you feel. And then I'll ring a Tibetan bowl here to indicate that it's over. Just about 10 minutes. We won't do it too long. And for those of you who are watching this as a video, sorry, it's not going to do much good for you. You got to do this live to have the energetic impact. I mean, you can meditate along with this if you want, but it's not the same benefit as doing it at the same time, even though we're different places in the world. You can develop energetic structures that you can just vibrate. If you vibrate the pattern of something else, you are basically what I would call one with it, or oneness. Okay, so let me get my little handy dandy clock going here. So I'd like for you to, as best you can, intend to be one energetically with everyone else on the call. And you don't have to think about who we all are. Sort of say, oh, everybody on the call. And just sort of play with that and see where you go. See you in about 10 minutes. Okay. You begin to bring your awareness back to our visual, verbal interaction. Anyone have any final quick questions or reflections you want to ask or share about? Okay. I hope to post this on my website or my Vimeo channel, which is Shamanic Transformation, and vimeo.com/Shamanic Transformation. And thank you much for joining. Thank you for giving me a chance to share my story. Of course, I have check out my website, which is either called sexualshaman.com, and it's also called therainbowbody.com. You have to put the in there or you go to a different site, therainbowbody.com. And I wish you all well. I thank you for joining in, and I hope you've gained something from it. Energetically, I think a lot has been happening for all of us. And I'm going to unmute everyone. So if you want to say hello, goodbye, you're welcome to do so. I did unmute. I think I unmuted everyone. There we go. Okay.
Thank you so much, Ray.
Thank you so much.
Ray.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Bye.
God's blessings. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Good to see you, Evelyn.
Yeah, bye-bye, Ray. Thank you. It was very good to be with you. Yeah.
Good, good. Sending hugs. Chris, I'll see you probably in a week at the Energy Circle.
Yes.
And Celeste, I'll see you in a few hours. Get some sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, I will. See you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.